Hello and welcome to Australia in Space TV. My name's Chris Cubbage, I'm the Executive Editor with My Security Media. We're at the 14th Australian Space Forum with the Andy Thomas Space Foundation here in Adelaide. I'm joined by Jeremy Hallett, who is a strategic advisor with Av-Comm Space and Defence. Thanks for joining us on Australia in Space TV.
No worries, thank you for having me, Chris.
Jeremy, dabbling was one of the things we pre-interview in terms of what you're currently doing in the space sector. Strategic advisor with Av-Comm. Maybe let's start with Av-Comm and then that should put it into context.
Yeah, so Av-Comm is how we say it.
Got it, okay, good.
They're an Australian company who's been around for 41 years, focusing on the ground segment in the space value chain. And they design, manufacture, install and deploy the ground segment in support of space applications, but also astronomy applications as well, using both radio frequency technologies and optical technologies. So what does all that mean? Let's unpack that a bit. We talk about the ground segment being the third leg of the stool of space technology that enables the applications. So two we know well, launch and satellites, what's in space. They're two of the legs, and without that, space capability doesn't exist. But the ground segment is everything that we have back on Earth to transmit signals to and from those spacecraft to enable the applications that we're delivering to everyday humans.
And I term it a ground station. Is that right? Or what is the correct terminology?
So a ground segment is the ground station is a subset of the ground segment.
Got it.
Where the ground segment includes the antenna system, like a parabolic reflector that you may think of as a ground station, and associated infrastructure, right through to the radio frequency signals, the modem infrastructure, which is turning that back into data, which goes onto networks for use by consumers. And
I don't know, what's sort of the key technologies that you would be in right now, or what are some of the leading stuff that you actually do in an Australian perspective, I suppose, in terms of a global space sector?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually, kind of what's old is becoming new again.
Right.
So Australia has a really strong pedigree in the manufacture of antenna systems, which kind of lapsed through the late 90s and the 2000s as suppliers here got bought up by overseas companies, and a lot of the excitement from space coming out of the back of the Cold War kind of died off. Now with the new space environment that we see and also supply chain issues globally, we're ramping up that manufacture of antenna systems in Australia again. So that includes fabricating reflectors, so the parabolic dishes out of steel up in Sydney, where Av-Comm is headquartered in Brookvale, and also carbon fibre reflectors, which we're manufacturing with a supplier down in Nowra. Right. So yeah, antennas aren't novel, but doing them in Australia is, because it's been 20 years since they've been done. And it's in response to a business imperative in that we couldn't source from our suppliers in a timely manner to deliver our customers here in Australia and across Asia Pacific. And as we're finding demand more broadly internationally, particularly in Europe. Is
it Australian steel by chance?
Yes.
Okay, thank goodness for that.
Yes.
I'd hate to be importing steel. So how long has that been going on in terms of the setup, and have we got the whole supply chain going there in terms of the supply of the raw materials through to manufacture?
Yeah, we're very close to getting the whole supply chain. As any good business should, we don't do everything in-house. Up in Brookvale there in Sydney is a great industrial precinct where we have our suppliers who are often one or two man bands who are bending the metal, doing the sandblasting, doing the painting, and then we assemble that into a finished product and do the deployment onto a customer's facility, which could be on a rooftop or in a remote location where they're building these antennas. So kind of owning that all within Av-Comm and increasingly pulling all those components to being manufactured within that supply chain, because it's not something you can snap your fingers do overnight and start doing. Early variants were kind of 50-50 Australian manufactured versus imported components, and we're transitioning that along to being fully sovereign capability manufactured here.
And exporting as well?
Some of the components we make already are exported heavily.
Right.
So we manufacture some of the filter systems and the feed systems that go into antenna systems, and are selling thousands of units of those internationally every year. And really, they're commodity. They're only worth a few $100 each, but volume is great. And we have units like that deployed on all continents, including Antarctica.
So what's the strategic outlook then for the company, given your role as a strategic advisor?
That's a great question. Av-Comm views the space industry as kind of three pillars of commercial space, where we've come from, which is your traditional telecommunications-centric satellite communication providers, providing connectivity solutions to everyday men and women wherever they are in the world. And that business is not going away, and that's predominantly where we've played before.
That's your core.
That's core. Yeah. And as part of that, we've built probably 1,000 ground stations over the last 41 years in support of those applications, and not to mention all the product we manufacture. The second is what we refer to as civil space, which is the new space companies that you see here at the Space Forum today in Adelaide, but also internationally, that are doing applications such as Earth observation from space, whether it's optical or synthetic aperture radar or other applications. And that also includes the space agencies, both in Australia and internationally, which are doing the science and exploration-based missions. We refer to that as civil space, where we traditionally have done no business.
Yep.
And then the third one is military and government, which has always been big business, but is only getting bigger with the demands given the current geopolitical situation. So it's those two areas where I have quite a lot of experience from my previous roles that I'm helping Michael, who's the MD of Av-Comm, pull the capability from our commercial space business into those. Because the beautiful thing for Av-Comm is the technology is all the same.
Yeah.
It's just the application is slightly different,
yeah.
The customer is slightly different, and so there's just a translation thing to deal with those.
And their expectations as you come to market. Is it purely hardware that you're in? Are you in the software side of this as well?
No, it's like 95% hardware.
Got it.
We have some of our own software to steer the antennas, to track satellites as they pass over, but that's kind of firmware level capability embedded in the antenna
and
system.
being a 40-plus-year-old company, and how you just described those three pillars, it sounds like you're staying core to that business. You're not looking to expand or diversify.
There's no need. All of those segments are growing rapidly, and all of them have opportunity here in Australia and internationally, which is accessible to an Australian company like Av-Comm.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, we are on a significant growth journey as it is with dealing with those markets.
Great. Well, look, on that note, Jeremy Hallett, Strategic Advisor with Av-Comm Space and Defence, thank you very much for joining us on Australia in Space TV.
Thank you for having me.